Yo,
Howdy,
my man.
friend.
What up, dude? Hey, I was reading the Bible, a little Old Testament action, and I read this thing that really it just kind of struck with me. Struck with me. It
S-
stuck with me, and it
mm,
struck me, both struck and stuck. It struck
which
and
one did
then
it
it
do
stuck.
first?
Struck. It has to struck. It has to strike before it can stick. So it struck first, then it stuck.
Okay, got it.
And it was Malachi 1:8, which says, when you give
Malachi.
Malachi, yeah, buddy. When you give blind animals as sacrifice, isn't isn't that wrong? And isn't it wrong to offer animals that are crippled and diseased? Try giving gifts like that to your governor and see how pleased he is. And I, it stuck with me because it really made me think. So this was a time when, like, animal sacrifice was a norm
Pretty standard.
societally, and it was ritually normal, acceptable, expected, all that good stuff. And the Israelites specifically were dishonoring God through the quality of their offering. They were giving, like, diseased animals, broken animals. They weren't giving the best, and they were called to give the best, the first fruits, right? And it why it really hit me is because it started making me think about my offerings. You know, do I honor the most important things in my life with my actions and not just words? Do I give my time? Do I give my effort? Do I give my grace? Do I give my kindness? Do I give my first fruits? Right? Do I give my energy, my patience, all these things? Do I give them to those that I most love, or do I give them? It's like Rick Warren talks about. You're fighting with your family, fighting with your wife. The phone rings. You're like, "Hello, how are you?" You're like, you totally change, right? Are you giving that "Hello, how are you" person to people that just aren't as consequential or a priority to you as those that are? And it caused me to really just try to start taking note of, where am I giving my offerings? Like, where am I giving the best of myself? And as I analyzed that, I was like, oh wow, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought for sure. Um, one of the things we do also in the Connect My Mind Mastermind is kind of go through identity, purpose, values, and what are your values? What are your personal core values? And I think a lot of us will say that God is the top priority, our spouse, our wife is the second priority, our kids are the third priority, and then everything else is a lower priority. But we say that, do your actions really match that? Are we giving those the priority? Are we giving those the time and energy required to call it our top priorities? I'm at fault in this a lot because I'm a checklist guy, right? I have a morning routine checklist, right? And one of the items on my checklist is to read the Bible and pray and journal and do quiet time. And I've been known in the past to like do something just to check it off, right? Like I'll read a passage in the Bible and have no idea what I read right afterwards, right? Just to check it off. I'll say I meditated because I had the meditation app on in silent mode while on my computer sending emails with the meditation app on in the
You didn't
background.
do that. You really did that?
I've done it. I'm not gonna lie, I've done it.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Good for
Um,
you.
yeah. So, and then with your family, with your kids, with your wife, we did another podcast about distraction and phone time, and like, are you giving your time and energy to those you love, or are they getting like leftover time? Are you so focused on your work, on you know uh, making more money, building wealth, to and then not having a sit down meal with your kids and asking them how their day was and like playing with them and putting the phone away? Like, what's the priority? Is family really your priority? Are your kids really your priority? I mean,
Well,
there's
it's
a
true. And, like, I'll tell you another thing that's been challenging me. There's a book called Celebration of Disciplines by Foster, Stephen Foster, I think his name. And that book has a number of spiritual disciplines, right? Like fasting and solitude, like has a bunch of things in there.
Yeah.
And then the podcast we've been listening to, we listen to John Mark Comer a lot. His books are amazing. And there's, the Common Habit. There's a number of different, there's no shortage of, you could just go to the source, you go to the Bible, and there's no shortage of things that we're called to do and that are beneficial for us, right? That are disciplines that we should be doing. And so it begs the question, God's number one in my life. Cool. Like, do you do any of the disciplines that are as prescribed by him and his followers in the Bible? No, not really, but he's the number one. He's he's the one I love, right? Or prayer, or even reading the Bible, or any of those things. And it's pretty fascinating, not only from the perspective of the people and the things that we're committed to, that should be a priority, that we say are a priority, that are not getting our best. I'm sorry, but also from a slightly different perspective. Very selfishly, consider yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, how much time and energy do you spend on your deepest desires? Like, on considering what you were created for, and considering what you're passionate about. Like, how much time do you spend and energy you spend on the things that make you tick? Do you even know what those things are? Or are you the type of person that's just like, man, I want to have, or I wish I was, or if only, like, you use that language, right? Oh, that girl, they're so lucky. If I was that lucky, like, assess your language and assess where your time and energy goes to yourself as well, not just an external focus, but for you. Do you know what your passions are? Do you know what you were created for? Do you know what you love? And if you do, if you're blessed enough to figure those things out, because you've given yourself the time and the energy and the effort and the capacity to do that, what do you do about it? Right. And if it's nothing, then how truly fulfilled are you? And so I think it's a fascinating question on where we give our offerings. And then when you look at it too, like, you have a beautiful opportunity to be honest. Like, I did this recently and it felt terrible. It just felt like such a waste of life. But I totally binged on thank God it was only 6 seasons long. And it was only 6 episodes per season, but that's 36 hours. I binged big time on Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
And I even in the midst of it, I was like, man, I'm just wasting my life here. And I say that and it sounds harsh, but in reality, like, what are you doing if you're just binging on TV? Like, you're literally wasting life. Like, you're just, like, what good comes out of it? Like, what benefit, if you're a person of faith, like, is it drawing you closer to God? Like, that show, a lot of killing, a lot of
Yeah.
crime, a lot of sex, a lot of adultery, a lot of bad stuff that I don't need in my mind and my head. Is it entertaining? Sure, it was entertaining. But as I analyze it, I'm like, man, like, what a terrible offering of time and effort. And usually I was staying up late to watch it. So my next morning, the routine is all messed up. Like, there was just, I couldn't make a list of the pros that even came close to the cons. Not even a competition. Completely lopsided. And yet a lot of us just go through life that way and don't ever take stock. And it just was it was just kind of an eye-opener for me. Malachi 1:8, dude. It just was like,
It's good, man. Yeah,
okay.
you said earlier, do I give as much time, effort, grace, kindness, and patience to those I most love as I do to the acquaintances and the strangers? Ask that same question, like, to yourself. Like, do I give myself as much time, effort, grace, kindness, and patience to myself as I do to those of acquaintances and strangers? I bet you a lot of people say no to that.
Yeah. And I think it's even a little more complicated. I think most people don't know. I think we
Fair.
go through life kind of like, lacking intention. So, like, somebody couldn't tell you, like, I can tell you the exact amount of time I wasted on that show. It was 36 hours. That's how much time I wasted on that show, was 36 hours. I don't think, but I couldn't tell you how much time I wasted on my cell phone today, or I couldn't tell you, like, where time and stuff goes, because I'm just not intentional about that. When you start being intentional about it, then you start really being like, oh, dang. And if you're really, really intentional, you want to go next to the like varsity level, get an app or get or a calendar or break it down into a picture of how much life you have, average, how much life you have remaining and how much you've gone through, and break it down into that, factoring in sleep and all that kind of stuff. And no kidding, look at a picture of how much life you have, expectancy you have left, and how much of that, plug in how much time you waste on a daily basis, and then factor that across, that remaining time. And dude, that's like, ooh, oh, okay. That pings a little bit.
Yeah. That strikes and sticks.
That strikes and sticks. It should. If you did it, it would. If you did it, it would.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, buddy.
What's the action step out of this?
Don't go binge Peaky Blinders. This was not an endorsement for Peaky Blinders.
Bad call
on my part. But I think the action is just include, do one of the things we just talked about, right? Like, say you do, if you're willing to spend a couple hours, like, build that out, build that picture, that graph out of my life remaining, and just see if it makes an impact. Read the Bible. That's a great one. Like, I think you should read the Bible. Even if you're a non-believer, read the Bible. There's some really, really good stuff in there.
Well, especially if you say God is number one in your life.
Well, and if you're a Christian, you say God's number one in your life, you're not reading the Bible. Like, it's just, I think the biggest action step, no joke, the biggest action step is be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. If you're saying things are important and like your kids have to compete with you for cell phone time, then like, dude, just be honest. They're not that important. They're not as important as your cell phone or your clients. They're not. Just say it, because that's how they feel. If you say God's number one in your life and you don't go to church, you don't listen to God edifying things, you don't read your Bible, you have no morning routine that sets you time to be in prayer with God, and he's more of like a genie in a lamp, like, call it that. Be like, my number one priority is my genie in my lamp that I rub when things are not going well, and I hope my prayers are answered, because the only time I pray is when stuff's going bad, right? Like, that's what I do. Like, just be honest. Just take an assessment. Just be honest. It's no judgment for me. I don't care. It's your life. But if you're honest with yourself, it has the power to change, and you can become the person that you want to become, because you know who you are. You know who you want to become. You know the gap, and there's things you can do about that.
Love it. Stuff. Hard stuff, but good.
Hard. It's not easy. Or just go turn on Netflix and
watch Peaky Blinders.
Watch Peaky Blinders and live a passive life and cruise through like that. That's your other alternative. You can do that too. It's up to you. You shouldn't, but it's your life. Love you.
Love you. Bye now.